Well, as of this week, it appears that he can't in the current environment. And as it happens, Arizona is my home state. And so it was quite striking. Almost the same day that Victoria decided to reimpose a shutdown of the economy because of 25 new cases, Arizona on Tuesday this week reported 3,500 new cases. And that's the same day that the president decided it was a good idea to fly into Arizona and to hold a rally held in a church with 6,000 people together without face masks on, sitting in close proximity with no social distancing. So it just tells you what a stark difference we're seeing. What really was interesting, in line with your question, was what happened over the weekend. Is the president had raised expectations about tremendous public outpouring for a rally in Tulsa, where he anticipated he'd have 20,000 people in the arena and 40,000 outside, and had indicated that as 1 million people had expressed interest in it coming and acquired tickets, but in the end, only 6,000 showed. And so that really just shows that among the president's base, which tends to be older, there is deep anxiety about the virus, and it's justified. Today, the United States posted a single-day high of over 36,000 new cases. And so obviously, we're headed for a real bumpy road in the weeks to come.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, I mean, if you're talking across the nation, we're talking a nation of more than 300 million people. But when you're getting 3,000, as you mentioned, just in Arizona, if you're heading out to one of these rallies, I mean, even in Victoria, people are being urged to take precautions, but complacency is a thing because you think, well, I'm still unlikely really to come into contact with someone and then get the virus. That prospect has to be very real in the minds of people going there. This is another element of this as well, is you've got health systems overwhelmed, so they don't know what sort of care they'll get.
Absolutely. And again, what you're seeing is a shifting of how the virus is playing out in the United States. And in many respects, you can't look at the United States as one country because it's 50 different states with very different economies and very different governments. And so early on, what you saw were states like Washington and New York, where it was truly a tragedy. They weren't prepared for it. They didn't get the resources or the information out of the federal government, and they were hit hard earlier on. Those states now have relatively good, command of the pandemic, and you've seen a dramatic reduction in those cases, and that was responsible for the overall reduction in the United States over the last several months. In contrast to that, what's happening in Texas, in Arizona, in Florida today isn't a tragedy. It's criminal. Because what you've seen is those states, despite having the information, despite having everything they need, have not taken the policy measures that the other states did that were necessary to crack this down. And so you're seeing these cases skyrocket. And so again, a single day record for the United States, 36,000 new cases. And the U.S. no longer has the ability to do contact tracing. They no longer have a containment strategy. There's no longer the political will to do a shutdown of the economy. So all you've got is masks, and that itself has become highly politicized. And so essentially the United States appears to have given up.
If you look at the blue-red blame game over there, I mean, we're already talking about the Black Lives Matter protests in Australia, the federal government pointing to maybe whether that feeds into complacency. That was just from one weekend. The rallies over there have been extraordinary, massive numbers. I mean, is it easy for Donald Trump to point to those rallies and say, if you think I'm being irresponsible, take a look at what's being organised there?
Yeah, well, it is easy to see this devolving into a blue-red kind of blame game. In reality, this is not about blame. It's about hard facts. You can see what the highly urbanized states like California and New York went through and what they're doing now. And you can see what states like Arizona or Oklahoma, where the president held the rally over the weekend, are doing right now. So you know the data, and the data doesn't lie in terms of whether things are coming. You're absolutely correct that as in Australia and the United States, there's going to be a lot of people saying, well, clearly this is the fault of the Black Lives Matter protest. But on a realistic level, take my home state of Arizona. You get 20,000 people who come out one weekend for a rally. The notion that somehow is responsible for that, when the vast majority of those were part of the face mask wearing side of American politics, and you compare that with 3 million people out at malls and bars and barbecues and sporting events, and somehow the notion that you can lay this spike at the feet of protest rallies is spurious. And I think probably the same would apply here as well. It is an issue. It will be politicized, but the facts won't bear it out.